The following is a presentation of the Pro Wrestling Report. Informative, entertaining, and real since 1998.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this very special report from the Pro Wrestling Report. It's in-depth, David Hero, and a special in-depth series on TNA Wrestling over the last few weeks.
Impact Wrestling.
That's one of the topics we're going to talk about. Over the last few weeks, there's been some pretty heated discussion about TNA Wrestling, about Impact Wrestling. And what this 3-week series is going to do is show you where we're coming from. Not a defense of what we've said, but some more detailed discussion, because I think one of the problems, especially in the IWC, is TNA sucks. WWE sucks. Alberto Del Rio sucks. But no one ever is willing to explain themselves.
Why does it got to be ADR?
People say that.
No, they don't.
So what we're going to do over the course of these 3 weeks is explain our position on the status and the current situation in TNA Wrestling.
There's a lot of situations in TNA Wrestling.
And this week we're going to focus on, David Hero, you always want to start with the good before you go to the bad. We're going to talk about what's
Velvet
right.
Sky.
What's right with TNA Wrestling right now. And the first thing I'd have to say would be its new talent development. As selective as it's been, they have really focused on some key stars in the company, and we're seeing the fruits of that labor currently in TNA Wrestling. For one example, Gunner.
Gunner has been... He's been nurtured. He's been taught. He's been groomed. They brought him in as security guard with... who's the other guy? Brutus?
I don't remember his name.
Gunner, and it doesn't make a difference. I'm sure he's a good guy. Don't take it personal. And they slowly made him into a main event type player. I mean, he's a good wrestler. He's a good hand. Almost to the point where the guys in the back want to work with him because they're comfortable. They know they go out with him. He's going to work hard, try hard, and he's slowly getting over. And you know how I can tell he's slowly getting over?
How can you tell?
Because he's getting hate on Twitter. People are now tagging him and saying he's overrated and not that good. That means he's obviously making some noise, and people aren't ready for that.
I think, and I've said this before about Gunner, he's got a look. I'm not sure if it's the look. And what I mean by that is you know, with the long hair, the goatee, the tattoos, he's
like
run of the mill.
most guys in wrestling.
Exactly. But most guys in wrestling aren't at the top of their game. Meaning, it's got to be a little different, I think. I don't know if this current look is going to allow him to reach the success that he may be able to reach.
You know what?
I'm not sure how you change it either, by
Well,
the
you
way.
can shave his head, put a shirt on him, shave his face. You can't stop talent, okay?
CM Punk would say differently.
We're not talking about CM Punk. This is a TNA show. Impact Wrestling. If Gunner has the goods that everyone says he has, he's going to be just fine. Look at Jerry Lynn. Jerry Lynn, a very talented guy. Headliner, main eventer in ECW. He's still wrestling today.
Right.
Because he puts on great matches.
Absolutely.
You can't hold back talent. You can hold it back, but you can't stop it.
The next name on the list is Crimson. Sidelined by injury right now, but we saw his rise to fame in that Bound for Glory series. I think they've done a good job with him as well. Some may call him Goldberg light, if you will. I don't jump on that bandwagon necessarily, because I think Crimson is somebody who came from nowhere and got built singly by TNA Wrestling.
I think Crimson has a ton of potential, but unfortunately, you know, he does have that Goldberg albatross around his neck. I mean, no matter what he does, he's going to be compared to the Jackhammer. And, you know, unfair, indifferent, whatever it is, you know, as the Kaz would say, it's up to the fans to get him over. If
Triple H said that too.
If they like him, it'll happen. And Crimson has a great look. I mean, he's a big kid. Land of the Giants. I'm sure he's going to. You know, he'll come back from his injury. He might go right back into that program with Kurt Angle. He might say he's the guy that got screwed in the Bound for Glory series. They have a lot of different scenarios to punch or to put Crimson back in that main event situation, because that's obviously where he's going. I mean, they're investing a lot of money in him. And he's got the look that they want. That is the Vince Russo type look. That's his kind of guy.
Austin Aries, a guy who was in TNA Wrestling and part of the X Division back in the day, now back in TNA Wrestling, and I think it became evident when he won the championship at No Surrender just how great he was, not only in the ring, but in convincing you to come to see him wrestle.
Austin Aries, I think, has come the furthest out of anybody. I mean, yes, he was there as Austin Starr before. Terrible attitude, burnt bridges. Hell, he blew up bridges, okay? And he wound up with no place to go.
Literally.
Really.
Went to Ring of Honor, was in Dragon Gate.
You know, and actually spent some time, you know, back here in Milwaukee, doing indies here. And you know what? It clicked. He finally got it. Hey, this is a business. Let me try to make some money here. And you know what? He is freaking fantastic. The stuff he does in the ring looks believable.
Right.
And he does it a million miles an hour. Not many guys can do that.
But he's paced.
And he cuts a great promo. You know, everything he says, he can back up in the ring. And if you watch how he works as a heel, he gives everything to the babyface to get them over. So when he finally does win, it means that much more. He's a selfless wrestler, which is hard to find.
Robert Roode. Now, we're talking about new talent development. These next couple are not new, but they've got a renewed focus from TNA or
This is
Impact
definitely
Wrestling.
new talent development.
Robert Roode,
Absolutely.
winner of the Bound for Glory series. He goes into Bound for Glory in a few weeks to face Kurt Angle for the TNA World Championship. In the meantime, he's going to face every member of Fortune.
How many times have we heard from wrestling stars in both companies that have said Bobby Roode is the next big thing?
Yeah.
That he's got it all. He's got the look. He's a great worker. He can talk. And you know what? It's true. I mean, they're putting him in a spot which I think is a little unfair because they put the rocket on him and they're zipping him to the top of their Super Bowl instead of a little more of a gradual, slow build so the fans can embrace it and appreciate it. Right now, the Bound for Glory main event looks like one half of the former tag team champions against the Olympic gold medalist Kurt Angle. So they got to hope that now, from now until Bound for Glory, is that Jeeves calling again?
No, it's Virgil. He's outside waiting.
That it shows how good Bobby Roode is by slowly taking apart each member of Immortal. So now he looks like he belongs in a main event with perhaps one of the best wrestlers of all time, Kurt Angle.
I think they did a tremendous job at No Surrender and really swiftly re-elevating Robert Roode. And as you said, he is one of the best talents in wrestling, specifically TNA Wrestling Right Now. He's put on those great matches for years. You remember the time he spent with Tracy Brooks and that great feud with Christian that he had. Now he goes into Bound for Glory. You say it looks as if one half of the tag team champions...
Right now, today, as we're talking, a couple days after No Surrender, that's how it looks.
Will the fans believe, based on that statement, that Robert Roode... Are you kidding me?
It's Papa Pump. Hold on a second. Pump. Honestly, we're talking about TNA right now. Can I call you back when we're done? Are you sure? Yes. Yes.
Can't believe this.
All right. Thanks, my man. Bye-bye.
You're supposed to leave that in the control room.
I really... What are the chances? That was Papa Pump talking about he'll be taking out Bobby Roode. Not for dinner, but that's just part of the marching orders.
Does he have a chance in the fans' eyes against Kurt Angle at Bound for Glory?
Here's how he'll have a chance in the fans' eyes. Is if he beats Immortal. Not Immortal jumps in the ring after a match and beats him down to make him weak going into Bound for Glory. They have got to elevate Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, to the point where, oh my gosh, he is on a roll. He has lightning in a bottle. He has the opportunity to do some amazing things. But if they're going to do the thing where it's like the old NWO, where, you know, it's the baby face in there and he's about to go over on the heel, and then 10 guys jump him every week, Well, then no. Because why? Because they're going to beat Bobby Roode down every week, so he'll be weak going in his match with Kurt Angle instead of making him strong where he's beating these guys. He has to beat Bubba Ray. He has to beat Scott Steiner. He has to beat Gunner. He has to beat Abyss. He has to pin them or make them submit so it looks like, wow, the guy can go. Here's why they gave Bobby Roode the crippler crossface. So now he has a submission to go against Kurt Angle's ankle lock.
That's smart booking. Some would say TNA doesn't know how to do that.
That's how... Because Bobby Roode doesn't have a finisher.
Right.
He's been doing tag teams for so long. James Storm...
And he's believable as a
James
submission
Storm
artist.
is not going to come in the ring and help him, get the finish on Kurt Angle. That's why he now has a submission, because, let's face it, what kind of finisher can they get over out of the blue on this guy? Mm-hmm. That was some really good booking by TNA.
The next one is probably going to be questioned by a lot of you out there, but I think that especially after No Surrender and after last week's Impact, it makes a lot more sense now. But Samoa Joe, screwed out of the Bound for Glory series, angry at everybody in TNA.
He's always been angry.
They're scared of him in TNA, at least that's what TNA would like us to believe. Joe is on his way, I think, slowly. You talked about a slow build earlier. On his way to slowly being back that monster that he was before.
I don't know. This I might disagree with you. I don't know if Hogan and Bischoff subscribe to the theory of Samoa Joe.
The theory of Samoa Joe as far as...
As a legitimate tough guy. As a guy that can go out there and kill people.
Joe is going to kill you.
Who's he killed lately?
Made Matt Morgan tap out last week.
Did he?
Is he going to call you next?
No, we don't talk. But I don't know. I think Joe is going to be a little bit of a stretch. I think it's going to be interesting if they can make that happen, because he's already had his run. And you know what? The fans really aren't embracing him. They're not even booing or cheering him.
Right.
I think Christian, I think Gunner, Bobby Roode,
Crimson.
Austin Aries, Crimson. Same spelling, different meaning. You know what I mean? I don't know if Joe is still that guy anymore.
And the last name on this list, Bully Ray.
You know, when Bully Ray became a singles competitor after they teased the Dudleys were going to retire from wrestling.
Mm-hmm. Which was painful during that entire series.
When I saw Bubba Ray join Immortal, I was like, wow, this guy is never going to go away. And I hated it. I didn't like it at all. He has slowly become a force in Impact. He's got himself in fantastic shape.
That shape, hell, I can remember him being in, even back to the ECW days.
His promos are very good, but it also helps when you can swear. Okay? That's a little cheap heat, but you know what? He's pulling it off, but that's who he is.
Exactly.
That is the brash son of a gun from New York that he truly is.
I would say he uses that colorful language in a way that makes it more impactful, as opposed to some others who just use it for the sake of being able to use it.
I think it's going to be interesting, him going forward in the Bound for Glory, if Bully Ray is going to help get some of these younger guys over, or if he's going to be going into business for himself and just prolong his career.
Well, I mean, it's no secret that he is looking to work more behind the scenes in wrestling, TNA specifically. And given his performance over the last 6 months, I'm not sure that's such a bad thing.
I think he's a better in-ring performer than creative guy in the back.
But he gets it. He shows that every week.
He's been around for a long time. He understands theory. He knows how to tell a story. He's had some amazing matches. He's wrestled with the best and against the best. He's an asset to that locker room. But how much? But are you going to build your show around Bully Ray or Bobby Roode? Bully Ray or Crimson?
But arguably, it wouldn't have worked as well as it did at No Surrender with Bobby Roode if not for Bully Ray.
Well, absolutely. But both guys are tremendous hands. They can both go in the ring. They both hold a great story. That's the difference.
We talked about some individuals that TNA is working right, if you will. But I would say, overall, the X Division relaunch has been successful. because at the helm of that, you've had Brian Kendrick and Austin Aries. Kendrick has been solid, like it or not what he's doing, he's been solid.
In his hammer pants.
Austin Aries has been solid as well. So when you look at some of the talents they let go, and some of the talents that they brought in to be a part of this new X division, is this something they're also doing right?
It's amazing how, if you think about it, over the last couple of years, guys that have left the X division, Amazing Red, Jay Lethal, Sanjay Dutt, and they bring in guys like Jesse Sorensen, Kid Cash,
Aries,
and Aries.
Kendrick defined into that
It's like
group.
interesting. Who would have thought that would have worked for him?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely didn't.
And yeah, I think the X division, they have to keep introducing these guys to the fans, like Jesse Sorensen, because if you don't know who Jesse Sorensen is, you think Jesse Sorensen works at the theme park down there, selling popcorn and, you know, Mickey Mouse hats.
That's Universal, not Mickey.
It's the same thing. They're all in cahoots. So he needs to do something a little bit different besides wearing the varsity jacket and the football. But great look, good-looking kid. Obviously, they believe in him. He has a good future. And you know what? That X division, I think it'll never headline TNA the way it used to with Joe and Daniels and AJ. But I think it's a good upper card. Those are the matches. Austin Aries, his matches are the ones that are the matches that the fans are going to talk about.
As we continue to talk about what's right with TNA, much more to come, including some other areas that you may be surprised to hear it said publicly that they are doing very strong in. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, more in this special in-depth series looking at TNA or Impact Wrestling. We'll be right back. Welcome back to this special edition of the Pro Wrestling Report as we take a look at TNA Wrestling as a whole. And this, the first of a 3-week series, we're talking about what's right, David Hero, about TNA Wrestling. We just went over.
Won't take very long.
There you go. You've been doing so good. What'd you do during that break? The old David Hero's back.
No, come
They're
on.
doing a lot right.
You know what? It's just funny. I mean, they're
Funny how?
They
Like funny how?
laughed. They laughed. They smirked and smiled. It's about entertaining the peoples.
TNA's got some big names on their roster. They've got some what I like to call marquee talent, David Hero.
Absolutely.
Names such as Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Kurt Angle, Sting, and Jeff Hardy. That's actually a good thing that they're doing. It's good to have those names on your roster. We'll talk about the usage of those names in one of the next weeks. But they have these great, big, huge names in professional wrestling.
And salaries.
In professional wrestling, and one would think that it would increase the awareness of the company overall. It's arguable whether or not that's happened, but is this really something that's right about TNA, going out and grabbing these huge free agents, some retirees, if you will, from WWE, and having them as part of their company roster?
It worked for WCW when they tried to rebrand themselves, but those guys were active.
They were active and some in their prime.
You know, I just feel that TNA. Put it this way: if I'm in their position and I have the opportunity to get Hulk Hogan, Ric Flair, Sting, Kurt Angle, Jeff Hardy, Ken Anderson, I go out and I try to do it. Kevin Nash when they had Nash. You have to try to do. Those are recognizable.
Mick Foley.
Exactly. How can you fault them for trying? It had to be done. You know what? It didn't work because when they had those pieces, they didn't know how to use them properly. They didn't know how to market them properly. Okay? And it shows. It just shows the power of how one company out of Stamford, Connecticut is a marketing machine. Can get people over so quickly. And then you have the legends and icons in TNA And they walk through an airport and people are like, oh, where have you been? And they're still on national TV every week.
We'll talk more about the usage of those marquee talents and why they may not, as David Hero said a moment ago, why they may not be doing so effectively next week when we talk about what's wrong with TNA Wrestling.
That's an hour show, right?
Well, at least. One thing TNA is doing extremely well is their live event business. They're drawing relatively decent numbers, and they're making money on these live event tour shows.
What do you consider decent numbers?
Well, that's the thing. They're drawing topside 2,000 on a great night. But
That's a combined weekend sometimes.
But those names we just talked about, those marquee talents, aren't on those shows.
No, they're not.
So you have to lower the expectation a little bit for what they're going to draw. But they're on national television. I'm not sure if they spend enough time promoting those shows on TV because it takes more than a graphic to do so. But they're running in smaller venues. They're doing the up-close interaction with the meet and greets. They're also doing the VIP packages, the meet and greet packages with tickets and whatnot. Any fan who's been to a TNA live event, and we've been to several, any fan who's been to a TNA live event will tell you that it is an experience that they did not expect and one they would do again.
Well, yeah, because it's very intimate. I mean, you get a meet and greet with almost the entire locker room. You get tons of stuff signed. And they do a ton of merchandise sales. That is how they make money on their house shows. They don't make it on their tickets. They do it because they sell so much merch, and it's priced right.
Led by Don West.
Absolutely.
Grab bag, you couldn't even pass it up.
How can you not?
What was it, $20 for like
3
38 DVDs
and a T-shirt.
5 T-shirts?
Yeah.
How do they grow that business, though, David Hero? How do they grow their live event business? Is it the venue? Is it the town? Is it the talent?
Well,
is it the
it's
exposure overall?
It's definitely the town, because they're not going to the bigger markets.
Instead of New York, they're going to Poughkeepsie.
Which
Instead of
Poughkeepsie's a
Milwaukee.
great wrestling town.
Instead of Milwaukee, they're going to Racine.
Right.
Instead of Chicago, they're going to Hoffman Estates. Smaller population to pull from. However, the way TNA is looking at it is they're pulling from the millions of people in that market, when in reality, they're not. Because we know, being from Milwaukee, getting people to go down to Racine for a wrestling show,
easy.
It's not going to happen.
No.
As close as it may be, you got to be in the backyard, you got to be in the hometown. And one of the things WWE did or does, they look at ratings. You get ratings by market. You know how well you're doing in certain markets. Go to those markets, because if people are watching your programs on TV, more so in one market than another, they're more likely to attend your live show.
See, WCW, TNA was going to buildings where they had an arrangement where they would do a split on the buildings to cut back on a lot of their costs, where they would keep the merch and do a split on tickets. So for them, a lot of their expenses were covered, where the building would also pay for part of the advertising, which is a brilliant move on TNA. But unfortunately, when you go to these smaller towns that don't understand how to promote wrestling, you draw 500 people. Then you got to pay for 300. So now you have almost half the audience not paying for anything. There's no commitment there.
Right. And that was also what we saw and tonight, as a matter of fact, or tomorrow night maybe, TNA is back on the road with Impact, taping Impact, leading up to Bound for Glory. But that's what we're seeing. They're even having difficulty selling when they take the pay-per-views on the road and when they take the Impact shows on the road. The awareness just is not there. Now, we'll talk more about this when we talk about what's wrong with TNA, but as you said, they don't know how to promote the shows necessarily. They don't spend a whole lot to get the word out about the shows, and they focus on day of or week of radio interviews to make it happen. That's not going to get the tails in the seats.
No, because you know what? The problem with advertising nowadays, if it's on TV, everybody DVRs. So they're going to zip through the commercials. On radio, now you have Pandora, you have satellite, you have commercial free.
iHeart Radio.
Yeah, it's like, and then the newspaper is non-existent. So it's hard to get the word out if you don't have the people acclimated to what you're doing. And unfortunately with TNA, that is the problem they're having. Whereas you go on their website, like, you know, I'll go to see who's wrestling where. They'll list 2 or 3
This Friday
guys.
night in Hammond, or this Saturday night in Hammond, Indiana. We'll be at that show.
They haven't listed everyone that's on the show yet.
And the card is subject to change without notice. And I think it's important that we do this. We're going to take another time out.
Another one?
When we come back, you as the promoter of Great Lakes Championship Wrestling and Blizzard Brawl, one of the most successful, if not the most successful independent wrestling event each year here in the States, I want to hear how you promote that show. Share your knowledge with the peeps out there, because you've done it. And you might know a thing or two about getting people in a building. This is the Pro Wrestling Report in-depth special looking at TNA Wrestling. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report in-depth special, a look at TNA Wrestling. And this week, in the first of our 3-week series, we're looking at what's right about TNA Wrestling. And David Harrow, we were talking about the live event business. In a moment, we're going to talk about Impact Wrestling. Mm-hmm. You, as a promoter of Great Lakes Championship Wrestling, a man who's run the very successful Blizzard Brawl events for the last 7 years, what should they be doing? How does a promoter promote a show with marquee talent to a local market?
First of all, the important thing is you have to get a media partner, okay? Whether it be a TV station like My24.
Where we'll be this Saturday night with our big debut.
Absolutely.
It's the last show in the set, Big time.
Really? Mm-hmm. This is it?
This is it. Big Show is not going to take a...
And that means I'll get a
machete
I'll get the microphone?
No, not at all.
So get a good media partner in each town that will help promote the event. And one of the things that I've done that has worked very well for me with Blizzard Brawl is you use the local celebrities involved in it. Whereas I brought in WTMJ sports anchor Lance Allen.
On the number one station in the city, yeah.
Yeah, I brought him in, put him in a couple matches. Lance Allen, big wrestling fan, talks about it on his sportscast.
On the 10 o'clock news.
Exactly. Then you bring in, let's say, a sports talk radio guy. And you put him in a match with a beautiful diva. Mm-hmm. You don't think he's not going to tell all of his listeners he's going to be rolling around with a Playboy centerfold?
Tracy Brooks and Mike Wickett you're talking about?
Absolutely, and Sparky,
Oh, and Sparky as well, yes.
Or what you do is you take an internet wrestling guy.
You had CM Punk?
Who buries talent on air and decide to put him in a match with Chris Masters.
Domination. Right? I ain't no internet wrestling guy. How dare you? I'm on 540 ESPN and mine 24, you prick. Ninja, please.
But you use what's around you. And you know what? I've had talks with TNA Wrestling. We've sat in locker rooms. We've sat in boardrooms. We've sat having lunch and breakfast and talking about different ways to, promote events. And I am proud to say that their meet and greet scenario with their tickets was taken from Blizzard Brawl. Because we sat there, they're like, you're drawing 12, 15, 1,800 people. What are you doing? What are you charging for your tickets? I make my events like a fan fest and a wrestling show, where the fans can meet and greet all the talent that's on there. And you were with me. Shortly after that, TNA takes that plan.
If not the next week.
Pretty much.
We'll tell the fantasy story at some other time.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that was brilliant too. So, of course, you know what? Maybe I'm living in a dream world and maybe none of that stuff did happen. But I'm pretty sure.
Happened?
But I was there. I know you were there too. So.
But it's success. And I don't want this to be taken as anybody stealing from it. It came from a conversation.
Absolutely.
You're successful at it.
And you know what?
They're successful at it.
The people that I spoke with in TNA, I consider my friends, and I want them to do well. Mm-hmm. So you know what? If they liked my idea and they took it and ran with it and they're using it and they're making money with it, that's great. I think that's, and everybody wins. But, yeah, TNA has the right idea, the right concept. They just need to get it on a bigger screen.
Now they've got those partnerships. They're on Spike TV. How could you be on a nationally broadcast network and not have that awareness and not have that partnership? Are they devoting enough time, from your opinion as a promoter, on the weekly Impact Wrestling shows to their live events?
Not at all. I think that, unfortunately, you know what? You know when wrestling was big and it was the Attitude, it was Monday Night Wars.
Oh, I thought we were going before that to the event center.
Well, the event center was pretty sweet also. With
You always waited for them to talk about your city.
Gene Okerlund or Craig DeGeorge or Lance Russell or
Sir Alfred Hayes.
Lord Alfred Hayes. Ken Resnick, all those guys.
Todd Pettingzoo did it a couple times.
He did also. But when tickets would go on sale...
Oh, here's another revolutionary idea.
...in a certain town or city, what would happen? They would be, meet the Hardy Boys at the Bradley Center from 1 to 2 signing autographs when you get your tickets.
And since you're there, what else might you do?
Buy tickets.
When they go on sale. Not hope for a walk-up.
And, you know, it's like... You weren't paying those guys that much then. You know? TNA talent does not get paid a ton of money. All right? They don't.
Most don't.
Most don't. You can fly them in for an on sale. Have them there for 1 or 2 days doing radio and TV to promote them going to be down at the Bradley Center or the Mecca or the Garden.
And they do that in some instances, just to be fair.
But they don't do it enough.
The cost-benefit analysis, the cost that you just talked about, those small costs in sending somebody into town for an on sale, sell 25, 30 tickets.
Prime example.
You've made that back.
Prime example.
It's an investment.
ODB, friend of the show.
Mm-hmm. She's been in this very studio.
Love Jessie to death. When TNA was in Racine and Green Bay, they could have flown her down for $95 round trip on AirTran. Okay, I know her fee is not that much. Put her up in a $75 night hotel.
Full disclosure, wasn't this all suggested to TNA Wrestling by you?
Absolutely. Have her come down there, do meet and greets. You know what? She has a unique look. Okay,
hot unique look.
What morning radio jock is not going to want her and those sitting next to her?
To bring people with her?
Yes, talking about wrestling. It's a great story. Use it. I like Jeff Jarrett a ton. He does too much radio. You can't send Jeff Jarrett to an urban radio station. You can't do it. You don't send a Southern boy to urban radio. You don't.
That happened here in Milwaukee.
It happened here in Milwaukee.
And again, full disclosure, what was the best part about that? When did Jeff Jarrett find out it was an urban radio station?
When he spoke with me, after it was done.
The day of the show.
Yeah. So it's little things like that. And you know what? Everybody tries hard. There's no question that the people in that company try extremely hard to make a successful show. Because we've met with them, we've talked to them. I like them. I like all of them. But they don't know each market individually. And the problem is they have some people that used to work in WCW that are used to doing things back from 1997 to 2000.
When it worked.
And then they have another group of people that have never been in the wrestling business before.
From the music business. Different.
And it's not the same. It's different. With all that being said, I would not be interested in taking that job. Okay? Because that is a whole lot of work, and
it ain't easy.
It is not easy.
Pimping ain't either.
So for me to sit here and say that, you know...
But you do it. Don't discount this conversation. You do it.
I do it, but it's...
But there's a reason you do it once a year.
But I've been doing it since '96. No one knows this market, Milwaukee market, better than I do. Okay? So for me, I have the home field advantage. Mm-hmm. Now, if I were to take Blizzard Brawl on the road, would it be as successful? Maybe not, because I don't know people in certain markets.
There's no chance it would be.
Probably not.
Yeah.
So
year one. It would not be year one.
Well, no. So, like I said, the people at TNA try hard. It is not easy. Anyone that has ever tried to promote a wrestling show knows it is work. It's not just putting up posters. It's not putting stuff on the internet. You know, it is printing the tickets, doing the posters, booking the flights, getting the hotels, finding sponsors, getting people to help you work the event. It is not easy.
All that being said, and thank you for sharing that, all that being said, they're still seeing good success with their live event business, but there's an upside that they have not yet met.
Well, no, you know what? Put Hogan on there. Put Flair. Put Sting.
Can they afford it? Will it pay itself back?
In certain markets, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm not saying put, Hogan in Racine, Wisconsin, where you only get 1,200 people in a building. But when you're going to run these bigger buildings, you need to have a Hulk Hogan there.
Maybe Philadelphia will be the test.
Philadelphia
They've got seats to sell. Hogan versus Sting.
Listen, and TNA, I know you're listening. You give Hogan that ball and let him run with it all through Philadelphia. Everything should be Hogan Sting in Philadelphia, because that is what's going to sell the tickets. As talented as Bobby Roode is, they're not going to know who he is.
And you would say they're already doing that. You've seen the Bound for Glory poster. 3 men are on it: Hogan, Sting, and Flair.
And that's what you got to do there. You really do. Because you know what? Eventually, if Bobby Roode, he is as good as we think he is. When he gets there, then when he's on the poster, it will mean just as much. But right now, it doesn't. And you got to sell. If they fail in Philadelphia, the company goes back 5 steps.
Yeah. WWE easily spends millions upon millions of dollars in promotion of WrestleMania. They've got partners everywhere. When you get to the city, if you've been to a WrestleMania, when you get to the city,
you know it's in town.
WrestleMania's the big deal. There are signs in the airport. There are signs on the roads. There are signs downtown. The venue is lighting it up. All the news is covering it. You got multi-page spreads in the newspaper. Can TNA do that? Absolutely not. But can TNA do that with Hogan?
We were in Cincinnati for lockdown.
Right.
They didn't know there was a pay-per-view there. Right?
You are not exaggerating.
We were driving, looking
Hooters,
for the building.
We were at Hooters, next to the building. There was a river involved, but next to the building, they didn't know.
But
nor was there anything in there saying there was a wrestling pay-per-view.
We couldn't find the building, and we were at kitty corner from it, and the security and the police, oh, there's wrestling? Where? Not cool.
But again, their live event strategy at its core is solid. Their execution, not so much.
Right.
One final thing, David Hero, as we continue talking about what's right with TNA Wrestling. Impact Wrestling on Thursday nights on Spike TV. I think they're doing a lot right. If you look at where the show was a couple of years ago, and you look at where it is now, and you look at some of those talents we talked about a few minutes ago, clearly they're doing something right. Now, I'll admit, at times, Impact Wrestling is a chore and frustrating to watch. We'll get into the reasons for that next week when we continue this in-depth series. But the ratings are actually higher on average than the prior year for Impact. They've gone up no less than SmackDown has increased as well. Now, SmackDown's had some challenges with moving networks and all that stuff. But it's about a 1/10 of a point increase year over year for both SmackDown and Impact. So when you use that metric, Impact's not doing bad. But one question, should they be doing better? And we'll answer that next week. When you look at some of those marquee names we talked about, one would say they should. They have strong competition on Thursday nights, especially nowadays with the NFL. So to be able to have an increased rating year over year and still deliver a product that people are watching on Spike TV and have the network behind them in Spike TV, I consider Impact Wrestling at its core overall a success. What doesn't make the show watchable, okay? Doesn't make the show watchable.
That's why God invented DVR.
But at its core, I think Impact Wrestling is one of the things that the company is doing right. And you clearly disagree.
That's next week. Really? Again.
What's the alarm? We're out of time. We got big things going on. You know, tomorrow night, our new radio show, Sudden Impact, debuts right after Impact Wrestling.
I never got that memo.
Because you're not on it.
I'm not on it?
No. You cost too much per appearance.
Creative control.
Tomorrow night, right after Impact Wrestling, it's the Impact Wrestling post show called Sudden Impact. It debuts tomorrow night, right after Impact Wrestling on Blog Talk Radio. So be sure to check it out. And this Saturday, David, My 24, Channel 24 in Milwaukee.
Who's doing Sudden Impact?
Maybe they should tune in to find out.
Oh my gosh, this will be interesting.
This Saturday night, 10 o'clock, after Ring of Honor Wrestling on Channel 24 in Milwaukee. And, of course,
24.
still online all over the world, right here at pwrshow.com and on our YouTube channel. So, next week, David Hero, we look at what's wrong with TNA Wrestling. Before, in the following week, we look at how to fix those things that are wrong.
This is a 4-week series?
3 weeks, a complete in-depth series on TNA Wrestling as we try to share with you the reasoning behind not just our, but many fans' frustrations with some aspects of Impact Wrestling. This week, we talked about what's right, and damn, David Hero, I gotta say, there's a lot right about TNA Wrestling. For David Hero, this is Damian Nelson saying we'll see you next time right here on In Depth and then Saturday night on Channel 24.